This is Joy Foote. Welcome to Pine Mountain, then and now. Today's episode focuses on Mayhayley Lancaster. She's such an interesting woman. She was a lawyer, fortune teller, farmer, political activist, numbers runner, schoolteacher, and self-proclaimed Oracle of the Ages. She had one eye. In 1926, she ran for the Georgia legislature and was the first woman in Georgia to do so. Her campaign pledges included advocating for roads and railroads in rural counties, public schools, and the passage of a law that mandated that doctors must deliver babies regardless of the family's ability to pay. Unfortunately, she didn't win. Another claim to fame was her meaningful role in the John Wallace murder trial, and I will get into more detail about her in just a moment. But first, I need to back up and give you a brief outline of the John Wallace murder trial. Have you heard of the book Murder in Coweta County or Moonshine over Georgia? These books tell the story of the murder of Wilson Turner. To make a very long story short, John Wallace was a well-known and wealthy landowner in Meriwether County. Wilson Turner was a sharecropper tenant on Wallace's land, and the two of them got into a dispute. John Wallace then fired Wilson Turner. Subsequently, Turner, allegedly, stole a cow or two from John Wallace. Wilson Turner went missing, and his burned body was later found in Meriwether County. John Wallace was arrested for the murder and put to death by electrocution in 1950. His case was unique because it was the first time in Georgia history that a white man was found guilty and given the death sentence based on the testimony of two black men. Now that's a super short summary. The entire incident and subsequent trial and appeals would take a long time to cover in a podcast episode, so I encourage you to read the books. You can also watch the made-for-TV movie of the same name. It was released in 1983. Believe it or not, Andy Griffith played the villain, John Wallace. Johnny Cash played Sheriff Potts, and June Carter Cash played Mayhayley Lancaster, the one-eyed psychic. Now let's get into more details about Mayhayley. She was born in 1878 and died in 1955, and she was from Heard County, Georgia. Heard County is just north of Troup County, so very close by. As I mentioned already, but it's worth repeating, she was a lawyer, schoolteacher, political activist, fortune teller, numbers runner, and self-proclaimed Oracle of the Ages. In fact, there's a book written by Dot Moore entitled Oracle of the Ages, which is very thorough and fascinating. The incredible stories revealed in the book range from Mayhayley threatening to pour boiling water over a sheriff deputy's head, wearing a marble in her sunken eye socket, chewing ripped-out pages of the Bible to gain wisdom, befriending snakes, hiding money in pig troughs, and making a bold statement with her fashion choices. The list goes on and on. Mayhayley was so well known, and her psychic talents were so highly regarded that people would come for miles to see her. Some days there would be a line just to get into her home. The reason I want to talk about her today is I find her involvement in the John Wallace trial so fascinating. I liken her testimony to that of Kalo Kalin in the O.J. Simpson murder trial because Cato received a ton of attention from the media. The same is true of Mayhayley Lancaster in the John Wallace murder trial. I think you get the idea. And you may wonder why a one-eyed psychic would even be called to testify in the murder trial. Well, this is where the story gets interesting. From various accounts, John Wallace went to Mayhayley about every 6 months for years, looking for lost or stolen items, such as a prized dog, some money, a ring, a saddle, and a Bible, to name a few. He told her about the loss of some milk cans from his LaGrange dairy business, and about some whiskey missing from one of his many liquor stills. Mayhayley even advised him about his personal life, told him he would marry, and even predicted how long he would live. She was correct so often. Wallace kept coming back. He believed in the powers of Mayhayley Lancaster. So it was that Wallace visited with Mayhayley in April of 1948. He went to see Mayhayley about some missing cows. She told Wallace that Turner had taken the cows, which enraged him. 2 weeks later, Wallace was back to see Mayhayley about Turner's missing body. He was searching for the remains of Wilson Turner, whom he had murdered and thrown into an abandoned well. Having forgotten the location of the well, Wallace was panicked that the law might find the body before he could. Wallace believed that without a body, he could not be convicted of murder. It was not until much later, when he sat in the Coweta County Courthouse and listened to her testify against him, that Wallace regretted his visits to Mayhayley. Turns out, Mayhayley was an informant for law enforcement officials, including the Solicitor General, Luther Wyatt. When Wyatt was at a loss for where Wilson Turner's body could be, he sent 2 deputies to see Mayhayley. She told them enough to get them on the right track. Her words, "Fire, fire, fire," caused them to look for signs of a recent fire on Wallace's plantation. With Mayhayley's directions, the law enforcement officials found what was left of Turner, whose body had been retrieved from the well by Wallace and 2 reluctant, terrified black farmhands. Turner's body had been burned to ashes that were dumped into a stream on Wallace's property. What made Mayhayley's appearance and subsequent testimony in the courthouse so dramatic is how much the crowd was drawn to her. Just to give you one example, during a preliminary meeting at the sheriff's office, she strolled through the crowd and one reporter heard her say, $1 and a dime will buy the spirit's time. She was taking money as she strolled through the courthouse. I can only imagine how much Mayhayley stole the limelight. Truth is always stranger than fiction, and it's so mind-blowing to me that this nationally known murder was right in our backyard. In fact, John Wallace is buried in our city cemetery. Someone recently reached out to me when they heard I was covering murder stories this month, and she shared with me a very enticing tale about John Wallace. So here's what she told me, and it's so spooky. A pallbearer at John Wallace's funeral reported it was the lightest casket he had ever carried, implying, of course, that there was no body in the casket. And, beginning in the year after John Wallace was executed, the Coweta County Courthouse received an anonymous Christmas card every year for many, many years. Isn't that strange? Let's celebrate Halloween! On Saturday, October 26th, from 7 to 9 p.m., come join the fun in this free family event. The truck or treat and bonfire will be held at the ball field behind the police department in downtown Pine Mountain. That's 301 Chipley Street. There'll be music, a bounce house, bonfire, hot dogs, and drinks. Law enforcement and fire vehicles will be on display, and first responders will be giving away treats. You won't want to miss this. It's getting really close, and I hope you've been listening. On October 29th at 11:30 a.m. at Dakota's Counter is Our Town Trivia. It's the trivia game about our town, Pine Mountain. All the questions will be from the murders I've discussed in this month's episodes, so I expect it's going to be a very competitive game. I will be hosting this fun event in costume, dressed as Mayhayley Lancaster. Please email me at joy@tourswithjoy.com if you plan to attend. It helps us get a good head count. Today's episode was brought to you by Tours with Joy, the guided walking tours through Pine Mountain. There are 2 tours available, the Wild West Days of Chipley and the Beautiful Murals. Check out tourswithjoy.com for details. Special thanks goes out to the Chipley Historical Center for fact-checking this episode. The beautiful art and music for the show was created by Silly Bug Studios. My next episode is on Wednesday, October 30th. Hope to see you around town.